Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, host of the Hut. And here we are back live in New York City, and we're going to be going for a little while. Obviously, the big news was yesterday, and that's the Mets hired Buck Showalter to a 3-year contract. But there are a couple of interesting things, tidbits that sort of popped up in the last little bit, and we'll get into it. So before we get into that, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're watching on replay, just leave comments in the comment section. I do read them and I do write back. Hello to Leon. Hello to Mothman Evolved. Mothman says, hello, everyone. And like and subscribe to the Hut where there is true Mets baseball on YouTube. That's damn straight. Gio Flores and Jack in the Box. Hi, how are you? So this is very different than some of the other YouTube channels you may follow. One, I'm not on camera. I don't want to be the center of attention. Two, I kind of look at it as sort of like a radio show. So we do sort of although last night, I'd fallen asleep on my own show. That's not good. That's not good. Like all of a sudden, I become like Mike Francesa, falling asleep on my own radio show. But I kind of look at this as sort of a radio show, and I don't need to be the center of attention. I just do my thing, talk about the Mets, and we have a lot of fun. We'll have a video, I think, later on the Baseball Hut 2. And we're going to see what happens. And we're going to talk about Carlos Beltran. I got a little article here about Beltran, which I thought was pretty good. Hello, Roberto. How you doing? So we're going to talk about the Mets. And obviously they hired Buck Showalter. And throughout baseball, Mets are just it's great news for the Mets, obviously. They brought in a guy who's got experience. He's been a manager for 20 years with all these different organizations, with the Yankees, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Diamondbacks. He's done it all. He's also managed in the minor leagues many years ago. He's done everything, And the Mets have given him a 3-year contract. I'm sure over the next week or 2 or 3, we'll find out who's going to be on the coaching staff. I know Brian Butterworth. Brian Butterworth. There's one of I think it was Butterworth. It doesn't matter. Somebody that's been a coach for Buck for many years is going to be on the staff. Brian Butterworth, is it? Buttercup. I know Wayne Kirby was mentioned as was a former first base coach for the Orioles. I'm sure that he'll probably be here. A lot of his old coaches will be here, I think. Again, this was like a no-brainer. You couldn't have found a guy. You couldn't have found a guy that was perfect for this situation. Many years ago, a few years ago, when they were talking to the Girardi, I think just looking at, I don't know if Girardi would have been perfect fit here. I mean, he's a little uptight, I mean, he would have been fine here playing, imagine in New York, but he's a little uptight, Girardi. And I think if you asked me, who would I rather have, is Girardi or Showalter, I probably would have said Showalter back when. And they did talk to Girardi. Girardi would have been a perfect fit, over Beltran a few years ago. But, well, I don't have to worry about that now. But this is a good hire, bringing in Buck. And, he's going to have a lot of money to work with. He's also got the contract. They said that he has the highest salary of any Mets manager, which is amazing. That it's higher than Art Howe. I was thinking about this. Really, since Art Howe, they've gone very cheap with their managers. They've gone very cheap in terms of salary. Because after Art Howe got fired, they brought in Willie Randolph. He had no experience. And they kind of lowballed him in terms of just the money, because the fact of the matter is he never managed anywhere. So he had no experience when they brought him in here. And then they hired, I don't know what Jerry had gotten. Jerry Manuel, the former manager of the Mets, what the Mets had given him. But I don't think it was anything much higher than what Willie had. But he did manage the White Sox for a few years. Then they brought in Terry. They didn't break the bank for Terry. They certainly didn't break the bank for Mickey Callaway, the disaster that he was, and because he didn't have any experience. Same thing with Beltran, and certainly not with Louis Rojas. So the Mets have gone a long time without giving any kind of money to a manager. So I guess maybe the trade-off, because I had said the Mets were going to give him a 4-year contract, but they gave him more money than what Art Howe got, so he got a 3-year deal. I'm going to think that he probably got $8 to $9 million for 3 years, if not more. Interestingly enough, but we'll find out. I'm sure the numbers will get out there about how much money the Mets gave him. I haven't seen the exact number, but that was interesting enough that they gave him that much money. The Cohen is not going to be outspent. I mean, the one thing I think we're going to see now that Cohen had a year to watch and observe this ball club and the way things were sort of moving around, you get the sense now that he's going to start pushing now, which is excellent. So we're going to see where the Mets go from here. Obviously, everything is predicated on the health of Scherzer and Jacob deGrom. If the Mets can't keep them on the field, especially deGrom, they're going to have a tough time winning. So that's going to be the number 1 and 2 priority of Buck, is to get these guys to stay on the field. If the Mets can keep them on the field, the Mets are going to go far in postseason. So, they're going to get the postseason. They're going to be tough to beat with those two guys starting every day or starting every 4 or 5 days. But obviously, the Mets need other work. They need to do some other things. And they've been very busy. They brought in Starling Marte, which was a guy I wanted the Mets to bring in. They brought in Matt Kanya, and of course, they brought in Eduardo Escobar on a 2-year deal. What's interesting about the at least 2 of them, they only gave up 2 years for those guys, and Kanya and Escobar, which I thought was interesting because they didn't go crazy in terms of the years. Now they did kind of went over the money a little bit with Kanye because he's not been an everyday player. He's been close to it. And I'm going to read you this article about some different free agents that Joel Sherman of the New York Post brings up, and they're new names that I didn't even think of. And I would mention, I forgot all about him, that he's still pitching, believe it or not, in the majors, is Andrew Miller. I've seen a lefty specialist in that bullpen. Andrew Miller's still out there. Let me take a look on the side here on Andrew Miller before we get into the certain things that I want to talk about. We'll get into this thing on Beltran, by the way. Now, please like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the Baseball Hut. So we're going to get through this, and let's see. Now, meanwhile, if you're coming through for the first time, we do regular live streams here on this channel on Sunday afternoon. We come on around 4:30, and we come on Saturday on the Baseball Hut 2, doing live streams as well. So I try to do the live streams on a consistent basis for you all. And you never know when news will break. Obviously, it's not going to be a lot of news, but I will point out that on Tuesday, they're going to have the Zoom conference with Buck, and we'll get to learn about the process of them hiring him and everything else that's going on with him and what the Mets expect from him, what they want in this situation. Obviously, this is an enormous hire for the new ownership for Steve Cohen. And we're going to get into this thing on Beltran. I have this little thing about Beltran a little bit, which I was very surprised because people in the chat and a lot of my subs, all of you, have been mentioning this. And I was sort of poo-pooing it because I thought it was a little uncomfortable for the new manager to have to deal with a former manager. Now, here is from today's article. This is an article from early this morning by Joel Sherman. He brings up a couple interesting names. One that I didn't even think about, but I think he's kind of an interesting name. Let me find it, if I can read it, as it's frozen as always. He mentions Carlos Correa in this article. I could do a Carlos Correa video at some other point, as my computer has frozen, as always. It's so annoying. So annoying. So please like this video if you haven't already. And meanwhile, all right, Here are the four players that have been mentioned in this article. Colin McHugh, who is former Met, Yusei Kikuchi, Brett Gardner, the Yankee, and Andrew Miller. Now, Andrew Miller's numbers aren't great, but they would fill roles here with the Mets. Let me just get back up here. Let's see. They meant okay. Here's what they mentioned Correa. Well, he mentions Correa. His name's all screwed up here. The Mets already have Francisco Lindor at short and Pete Alonso at first. But what if Correa is attracted to New York and or the largest payday? Would he move to third like his friend A-Rod did to get here? If the DH is coming to the National League, could the Mets put Alonso there and Freeman at first? Isn't it stunning that both fit the Yankees so much better? And a change of ownership at least is going to force us to think about the Mets in connection with all players at the top of the market, because you can make the case that Scherzer and Lindor also fit the Yankees better. It is true. I didn't even think about Freddie Freeman, but the Mets don't really need a first baseman, quite frankly. But as my TV's, my stupid computer's frozen. Just go back up here. All right. Colin McHugh. My original thought was to go for lefty swingman like Kwang Hoon Kim, Martin Perez, or Drew Smiley to complement righty Trevor Williams. Let me skip over this. So with the Mets not having a veteran lefty reliever, this adds righties who suffocate lefties. Tepera is one of them. And the other is McHugh and Tepera give him a new Mets manager a bullet of late game options with Edwin Diaz, Miguel Castro, and let's just skip to Andrew Miller. Now, the thing about Andrew Miller, this is all screwed up here. The thing about Andrew Miller, he's not nearly as good as he was, but he is a reliever, obviously, and relievers tend to go up and down with what they do, and they're sort of going up and down. Is very like you sort of go around about it. Like 1 year, a guy can be good, or 2-3 years, he can be bad, and then all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere. Now, a couple of things about Andrew Miller, just to go through real quickly. He has not been good in St. Louis. He's not been nearly as good as he was with the Yankees or with Cleveland. When he was with the Yankees, he had an ERA of 1.77, 104 games, and 45 saves. When he went to Cleveland, he was 10-7 with an ERA of 2.22 ERA with 7 saves. Since he's been with St. Louis over the last 3 seasons, which included his contract, he has gone 10-7 with 6-7 with an ERA of 4.34. Not very good. He's given up 16 home runs in 129 games. That's a lot. When he's with the Yankees, he gave up 10. This is in 3 seasons, by the way. And Cleveland, he gave up 9. Seems like that seems to be the average. He doesn't give up that many home, but he gives up a lot of home runs just going through all this. Wow, he gives up a lot of home runs. I didn't realize he gave up that many home runs. Aha! Here's an interesting connection. In 2014, Andrew Miller pitched for Buck Showalter. Interestingly enough, another guy to keep an eye on with them. Well, let me go through these names again. Colin McHugh, we all know what he has done in the past. He's actually had a very good career after he left the Mets. He won 19 games 1 year with the Astros. He pitched last year for the Rays. He has some value as a middle reliever and a late inning guy. Yusei Kikuchi, I don't know much about him. I've never seen him pitch. A lot of people that have been writing to me about him say he's not worth giving a contract to. Andrew Miller obviously pitched for the Orioles in 2014. So he's an interesting case for the Mets now. Brett Gardner. Is Brett Gardner worth bringing him in here to be a fourth outfielder with the Mets? Butterfield, there we go. Eh, I'll get Butterworth, Buttercup it. Thank you, Nelson. But how much does Brett Gardner have left? Let me take a look at his numbers on the side here. Um, let's take a peek. I'll have it on the side. So this past year, he had a win of one win above replacement. And the last 2 years, he's hit 222. How much does he have left? 7 stolen bases. I don't know. How much does he have left? That's the question. And really, he's got 335 on base percentage the last 2 years. I don't know. He might not be worth it to bring him in here. Not at his age. But he is the kind of guy you think about because, first of all, the Mets need another lefty bat in the outfield. They're going to need a lefty bat. He can run still. He can play defense. He doesn't have an arm. The Mets have a very good outfield defensively. Are you willing to carry a defensive liability in at Citi Field? I don't know. I'm not entirely but that is an interesting name. That's kind of what the Mets could use, a guy like him, a veteran guy that's been, he's been in big games and stuff, and be good for a somewhat younger team, which the Mets have some young guys here. He'd be good for that part of the Mets. I don't know, but that's kind of what the Mets are looking at. Another name to watch out for, especially if the Mets have a DH. I am glitching. I'm always glitching. Aaron. But another name that was sort of popped up last night because of Buck Showalter, and that's Nelson Cruz. If there is a DH in the name, there is a possibility maybe the Mets should consider bringing in Nelson Cruz. I don't know if I'd do that. Nelson Cruz is getting up there in age. How much more does he have left? He did not hit well in Tampa Bay, by the way. So that's sort of a bit of a killjoy, to be honest with you. But that was somebody that obviously the Mets now can start thinking about DHs. Now I would point out that the stuff we're all talking about, we really can't do much because the Mets, and like every other team, there's no baseball. The owner, and here's the thing: on Tuesday, when the Mets introduced Buck Showalter, he can't talk about the players. He can't talk about Pete Alonso. He can't talk about the pitching by name. They're not supposed to. They can't. So that's a bit of a disappointment. That's the one thing about all the stuff we're talking about. Can't talk about it because there's no moves. There's no moves to be made. By the way, here's from Roberto, and we'll get into this. Interesting about Beltran. Buck Showalter must hire the right coaching staff, and I don't believe Beltran would be the right bench coach. It'd be nice if he could bring back Bobby Valentine as I don't see Bobby doing that. Now get Bryant. Well, I don't see Bobby doing that. I think Bobby's basically retired. From Aaron, what happens if Buck talks about the players? Nobody's supposed to talk about any players. They're not supposed to. If you watch the MLB Network, all their program is off. All they have on are old games. They can't even talk about the players. This is some kind of like agreement that they have with the players. They can't talk about them. Like right now, I put on the MLB Network. Let's see what they got on. And they've been playing movies. They've been playing Kevin Costner movies. They played Field of Dreams the other night. They got Bull Durham on Monday. We got we got an All-Star game. Which All-Star game? The 2001 All-Star game. So, they can't talk about it. They cannot talk about it. They can't talk about the players. You know what happens? I don't know what happens, but they're not supposed to. I think part of it is because the copyright. All these players have rights to their image.
See it being
The hell,
95.
the hell is that? The
This
hell's
was
talking?
perfect timing. I'm glad to see the boys, Arthur
Who
and
the
Ed,
hell's that?
here.
All right, Gil Hodges Jr. Get the hell out of here. We're happy he got it in the Hall of Fame, but not during my show. The hell? The hell's going on? Yeah, it's something to do with the players own the rights to their own image, and because of that, um, because they own their images now, because they're not playing and there's a lockout. It's like a copyright thing, I guess. So, hello, Alex Figueroa. How are you? So we'll talk about Beltran because this came up on Twitter. I saw this on Twitter, and I thought this was an interesting thing. Now, people have been talking to me about Beltran being the Mets bench coach. Let me read you. This is from Metsmerized online. It's a great website. It's a Mets fan site. It's from Mike Puma. Cohen was enamored with Beltran hire, could rejoin the organization. Now we haven't heard anything about Beltran, and we didn't even know that anything about Cohen having any kind of opinion about Beltran. Let me read you this. The Mets' road to hiring Buck Showalter to be their new manager is one that started back in 2020 when Carlos Beltran, their manager at the time, a 6.5-year veteran of the Mets, was named in the Astros sign stealing scandal from 2017. Beltran, then a player, was heavily named as a conspirator of the idea to bang. He's mastermind, the conspirator. He's the mastermind to bring trash cans for certain pitches, to bang trash cans for certain pitches, pulled from video footage shot from center field. He was the only player named in the report. He never managed the game with the Mets. He was named in the report because he was retired. All the other players weren't named because they weren't retired. A lot of players should have been suspended. They really screwed that whole thing up. Major League Baseball should just came really down hard on these players. Um, you know, we won't talk about the NFL. The NFL is a joke. The Giants are charging exorbitant amounts of money to play in New Jersey for their fans that go to the games. And for their inconvenience, they're giving them a free Pepsi today. Ridiculous. That led to Luis Rojas taking over once Beltran was fired, managing the team during the initial wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, then given another shot to prove his managerial prowess with a full season 2021, which was a disaster. That didn't work out, and with a more veteran team assembled for the 22 season, the Mets will look to Showalter to run the show. But Mike Puma of the New York Post reported that it wouldn't be a huge surprise if Beltran was somehow brought back into the fold with the Mets. Now, people have been asking me that for months. I kind of poo-pooed it with the Mets, in particular in the dugout. But here's the article continues. Puma said that owner Steve Cohen was enamored with the Beltran hire when it first took place. Cohen was a minority owner in 2019 and was in the process of taking over as a majority owner. His initial deal with the Wellpunts fell through and eventually took over as majority owner in November 2020. A.J. Hinch and outscored two other dugout leaders involved with the Astros cheating scandal in 2017, lost their jobs in 2020, and then were rehired around the year after the report of sign stealing released by MLB. But Beltran is not the same camp. It's not the same camp. While he may have managed the team one day, if that is still a goal, he'll likely have to start over lower on the totem pole before getting the manager job. Puma seems to indicate that could happen in the Mets organization. Quote, the dynamic of pairing a younger presence such as Beltran with a veteran manager like Showalter could work, Puma said. It would give Beltran an opportunity to soak up knowledge from a well-respected tactician while bringing his own ideas to the mix. Beltran or not, it wouldn't be surprising to see them hire a younger person on the coaching staff that they see as someone who could eventually take over for the 65-year-old Showalter. Puma also said that if there's not a spot in the dugout for Beltran, his experience as a member of the Yankees front office in 2018 as a special assistant. He could be brought back into the organization that way if the Mets and Cohen are interested in that sort of reunion. Interesting they would bring this up. So he wouldn't put this out there, Puma, unless he had some kind of information saying that the Mets would think about doing that. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would never have a problem with him coming back, quite frankly. He's a Hall of Fame player, and you want to have Hall of Fame people in here, and with the Mets, you have guys that have been in the Hall that are going to go in the Hall of Fame. And Beltran's probably going to go to the Hall of Fame, probably with the Mets. I mean, I would think. You look at his numbers; his best years were with the Mets. Can't say it was with the Royals. He wasn't there long enough. Not as long as he probably should have been. But that's something we'll keep an eye on because you know it's an interesting story. I think that Beltran. I'll tell you one thing: people want to watch videos on Beltran, so we'll see. But that's an interesting case. Also, there was an article that I couldn't read because it's behind a paywall, and that is the Mets are considering dealing Ronnie Mauricio in a deal if they could swing a trade for a pitcher, which I thought was also interesting because, quite frankly, the Mets got to be very careful trading any of their prospects. We know they're big prospects. Mauricio's one of them, Alvarez and Beatty, with Vientos getting very close to being with the rest of them. Do the Mets do that kind of a move? You trade him, say, for example, Luis Castillo of the Reds, or you trade him for Sherman Manaea or one of the other pitchers with the Ace. Is it worth giving up a free agent? Is it worth giving up Mauricio to get Manaea for 1 year? I don't know if that's worth it. But we'll see. And Christian Breed. Beltran got the sign stealing idea from his time with the Yankees. He told the Astros that their sign stealing technology was outdated. The Yankees cheating scandals kept secret. There is a lot of cheating going on. A lot more cheating that's been going on from a few teams. That was a big thing here. It's sort of been quietly talked about, and that's this thing with the Yankees. That was mentioned here. This thing with the Yankees, and it was basically swept under the rug. Also, we've heard last offseason, I think someone with the Brewers complained about the Dodgers that they were stealing signs last postseason, the postseason they won the World Series in. There's also, I saw talk on Twitter that the 2014 Kansas City Royals were cheating, that they were cheating in postseason. That was the rumor. Now, I would point out in 2015, the Mets played the Royals. And then it seemed kind of strange looking back on it, how they always were so aggressive in terms of jumping on first pitches, except for the one game when Syndergaard tried to hit Escobar. Very interesting how quick they were to jump on the Met pitching the way they did. And obviously, in particular, with Alex Gordon hitting that home run against Jerry Familia in that first game. I wonder if he knew that pitch was coming, not just based off of, Jerry not stop, just going right through his windup. He didn't stop. That's a possibility. You never know. But yeah, that's the weird thing about the Astros. But Beltran never should have gotten fired, but he should have been back in baseball. It's surprising that he did not get back in baseball. The thing is that really pissed the Mets off because he lied to the Mets. If he hadn't lied to the Mets, he probably, first of all, he might not have gotten the job if he hadn't lied. That's the first thing. And secondly, if it would have been a big controversy that he was still managing, that he was managing the Mets. But I would point out that the Mets had a lot of plans for Beltran. They were I think they were probably gonna retire his number. I think they were kind of anticipating that he was going to get in the Hall of Fame. So I think they had a lot of plans for him, not just the fact that he was going to be the manager. I think they brought him in specifically with the idea that he was going to be manager. So it's 2017 he retired. So in another year or two, he'll be up for the Hall of Fame. So it's next year I would think, right? I think he's available next year. Um, so the Mets have big plans for Beltran. So it's a shame that he got himself fired and got involved in this. Now the thing about the science team, I don't think that'll really hurt his cause uh, as a Hall of Famer. I think he's going to get in the Hall of Fame anyway. But I don't think the cheating at the end of his career. He might not be a first ballot guy now. Christian Breed. There were several reports in 2020 that a judge wanted to unseal the findings from the investigation of the Yankees, and Boone went nuts. Then the story went silent. That I did not hear. That I didn't hear. But I know that things were sort of poo-pooed. I mean, they poo-pooed it, by the way. But what else can we discuss? Okay, again, with Kris Bryant. Let me go through the teams because there's a lot of teams, and again, we're going to talk a lot about Kris Bryant. The Mets are involved. This is a guy who could play third base. He could play the outfield. He could play, I guess, first. I would assume, and probably second. I would assume too. The Mets are involved. The Mariners, the Angels. I don't know where he would play on the Angels because they got Anthony Rendon. I guess maybe the outfield. The San Diego Padres, the Rockies, and the Phillies. Now, I have a little information that sort of popped up, and that is there's another team that could be involved with Michael Conforto. The Phillies, I think we've talked about a lot. The Mariners, which we talked a lot because he's from the Pacific Northwest and Oregon. And I was reading today the Marlins. I think the Marlins are going to make a big push for a big player. And when I mean a big player, a guy they're going to have to spurge some money for. I think one of two guys or three guys could be going to Miami. Nick Castellanos. I think that's a name that could go to Miami. Michael Conforto, and possibly Kris Bryant. Kris Bryant will go to the highest bidder. That I can assure you. Not so much Michael, but definitely Bryant. I don't know who Castellanos' agent is. If it's Boris, he's going to go to the highest bidder. But I could see him going to the Marlins. I can see Mike Conforto going anywhere. I mean, we have three teams that have been discussed, but I can see him going anywhere. He'll go to the highest bidder. The same goes for Kris Bryant. And Kris Bryant has 6 teams on him. So we'll see about that. But like I said earlier about Ronnie Mauricio, he might be the chip that the Mets dangle to get a starter in here. The Mets still have to get starting pitching in here. They need a lefty in this rotation. Sean Manaea will be discussed, but I don't know if the value for him is what it should be, as opposed to, say, for instance, for Mauricio. I don't know if he's worth that high of highly regarded prospect as Mauricio is. From Christian Breed, I could see Rizzo going to the Marlins, and they may be in a trade for Matt Olson. One of the two could end up there. That's true. That is true. It's very true. It'll be interesting to see where Matt Olson goes. We know the Yankees are involved. There's been word of the Braves being involved. There's this whole thing with Freddie Freeman. Maybe the Dodgers could be involved. Because Dodgers always have prospects, and they've made trades before with the A's. So I could see Rizzo could go anywhere. Quite frankly, the perfect fit is with the Yankees. He should just stay with the Yankees. I don't know what the Yankees are doing. A lot of people that sort of not really talk much about the Yankees here, quite frankly, and that I mean, I think there's sort of smatterings of people complaining that the Yankees haven't done anything, but it really is not the outrage you would hear as if it was the Mets. If the Mets hadn't done anything and they still hadn't hired a manager, you would be hearing a lot of insane kind of comments coming out of the media. The media have been very quiet when it comes to the Yankees. You know, Kenneth Flood, says this Beltran will be a bench coach and groomed to take over in 3 years. Okay, you say so. Who knows? Who knows at this point? I couldn't even tell you. I'll tell you a funny story. This happened last night. It's off the beaten path. So I did want to mention this. I was doing my live stream last night and on the Baseball Hut too. Now I'm going to mention this about YouTube. When you have like under 1,000 subscribers, you will get notifications from people that subscribe to your channel. So, for instance, if you subscribe to my channel on the other channel, I will get notifications from YouTube telling me who subscribed, specifically people that have like public subscription lists. Well, I got a subscription last night from a real fan. I gotta say his name, but he had subscribed to my channel last night, and he'd written to me on this channel uh, because I talked about, I think it was Max Scherzer. It was when I did the video on Max Scherzer, talking about how the Mets were going to sign him before they signed him. 2 weeks before the Mets signed Max Scherzer, I predicted that he was going to be here. And I talked about it. Did a great video on it, had a lot of views on it, made good money off of it, to be honest with you. And this person wrote to me and said, you know what? You belong in jail. You belong in jail. You need to go to jail for these kind of titles. So last night during the live stream, I get a notification on my phone that this Doom Cuff had subscribed to the Baseball Hut too. But he had a bit of a surprise because obviously there's a couple of things about this channel is a little bit different. That I don't tolerate any insanity directed towards myself or directed to anybody else that participates in the channel, any of the channels, and that's the first thing. So, and he was automatically blocked because of the crazy things he'd said to me on both channels. That blocked him on both channels. So he was unable to end. He resubscribed to the channel because he wanted to go crazy, crying to me and complaining about the titles of my videos. He was going to come in and do that, but he couldn't do that because I had him blocked. So, and I don't block too many people on both channels. Usually one channel, the other channel. I just sort of want to mention that because I kind of thought that was funny last night. From Ken, if any proof the Stankies cheating needs to be unsealed, absolutely. If they cheated, let us know what they did. Major League Baseball, believe it or not, they protect certain teams. They protect certain players, and they always have. They protected Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter really does not have a great reputation. He has a public reputation that is pretty bland. There's nothing really they talk about. He didn't have a squeaky clean image. That I can tell you from my own knowledge of some things about him. So, Major League Baseball goes out of its way to protect its stars. It goes out of its way to protect teams. Yankees always get protected. Mets don't get protected. That's what we always find out. Now, thinking about Jeter, I know that he's had. I'll leave it like this. He was very close with Darryl Strawberry. Very, very close with Darryl Strawberry when they played together. Darryl Strawberry was his hero on the field. And that is not an exaggeration. That is complete total 100% true. I don't know how much they palled around on the off when they were not playing, at night or whatever on the road. But I know they were very close. So you can take that wherever you want to take that. That's the first thing. Second thing, I know he was not the most fan friendly player to come down the pipe. To come down the pike. I know that he had been rude to fans directly in the Yankee clubhouse. I got a friend of my family, and she's friends with his cousin who lives in New Jersey. And back in the 90s, they went to go see Derek to get his autograph, to take pictures with him, and basically just sort of hang out with him a little bit before a game. And he was expecting them. He was expecting them to show up. And the family showed up, and Derek was very rude to them. He wouldn't sign autographs, and he's expecting them. Keep this in mind. He's expecting to be nice to them. Okay. He's expected to be, to greet them when they get to the clubhouse. He wouldn't sign autographs. He wouldn't take pictures. And these friends of mine, they're not Yankee fans. They're Met fans. Maybe that's it. Maybe he heard they were Met fans. I don't know. And this was about 96, 97. So this is early on in his career. So he's not the most pleasant person to deal with, quite frankly. He's rather unpleasant, extremely difficult to deal with, you know. But like I said, earlier, Major League Baseball protected him in terms of his reputation, interestingly enough. But, that happens in baseball. We've seen that in the past. They did that with Pete Rose. When Pete Rose was gambling in the 70s, Major League Baseball turned a blind eye to it because they didn't want the number one star in the game to be tainted by this. So they kind of put it off until he was retired. It's interestingly enough, they went after Pete Rose, right after he retired. They waited till he retired, broke that record and retired. But and they did not, and of course they protected the Astros. The Astros, those guys should have been suspended or at least fined. But because of the union, they protected them. They said, well, they're cooperating, yada yada yada. But the reality is, they should have, like Jose Altuve should have been suspended. I mean, the most obvious guy. Guy hits a postseason home run. They want to tear his shirt off. He wouldn't let them touch him. And it was so obvious at the time. Nobody really realized it, what he was doing. But it was obvious he was hooked up to something. And he didn't want anybody seeing it. Alex Bregman should have been suspended. But he wasn't. These are some of the more obvious guys. But, oh well, say la vie, I guess. But anyway, enough of this cheating stuff. Yeah, so what I do here is we do regular live streams on Sunday night on this channel. Now, because there's no news, I will have to find stuff to talk about here. We do talk about stuff here. And believe it or not. And there's always news coming out here and there in baseball, but in terms of player movement, there's no player movement. It's a shame because it would be nice if we had some moves going forward, but obviously with the lockout, we're going to have to wait. It's too bad, to be honest with you. I like having fun. I like doing this channel and what I do on YouTube on the other channel, on all my channels, really. And not being able to talk about acquisitions, this is tough, And the 2 weeks prior, the Mets were very busy. All the teams were busy, and all the players were moving like crazy. So it's been a very difficult couple of weeks since December 1st, not being able to talk about all these moves that we all want to see. I mean, the Met, like I said, Mets need another bat in their lineup. Kris Bryant will be at the top of the list. He didn't have a draft pick attached to him. I'm going to keep talking about Trevor Story until the Mets sign him, until some team signs him. Now, he does have a draft pick attached to him. That's the one thing about Trevor Story. And there's sort of been this talk that he would move to second, because really the Mets need a second baseman here. If you decide that Jeff McNeil is not a guy you want in your clubhouse, uh, then they're going to have to find themselves a second baseman. And Robinson cannot do it anymore at his age. He looked like he was struggling defensively anyway, and the 2 years that he played on the field for the Mets. So the Mets are going to have to figure out, where they go at second base, because they might need a second baseman here. Obviously, behind, just to go through the lineup, I wasn't planning on doing this, but go through the lineup a little bit. Mets don't have anything behind the plate in terms of just as hitters. So the Mets are just going to have to keep that seat warm until Francisco Alvarez is ready. James McCann did not have a good year. He had a down year in consideration of what he did the year before. Tomas Nido is a backup at best. Now defensively, they did a great job of throwing runners out, but their catching skills in terms of blocking the plate, in terms of actually catching the baseball, is not very good. It's average to mediocre. So that area has got to improve if this team is going to win, amongst many things. First base, the Mets had the best first baseman, one of the best first basemen in the game. No problem there. They obviously need a second baseman. They have to figure out what the hell they're going to do with that. Are they going to keep Jeff McNeil? And even if they kept Jeff, they need to get another bat in here. That's the one thing I'll say. Shortstop, Francisco Lindor is not going anywhere. We're going to find, and I understand that he got married, I guess, yesterday. Maybe that'll settle him down a little bit, take a little pressure off of him. But obviously, Buck is going to have to figure out what to do with him, just in terms of to get the best out of him. I think he'll get the best out of him. I think this is the right manager to sort of really get him in a good groove, because obviously Louis couldn't do that. Third base, they have Escobar. We'll see how he is as an offensive player. See how much he has left. What is he, 33, 34 years old? He's an interesting piece. And he's a switch hitter. He's gonna be bat sixth in this lineup, I would think. Fifth or sixth in this lineup. We have in the outfield. The Mets outfield is much, much better than it was before the offseason was over. We have Brandon Nimmo in left. He's a very good outfielder. And hopefully he can stay healthy. He's going to be on a walk year. There's been kind of talk that the Mets would give him a contract extension. I'd wait. Let's see him put this together in a full year. They signed Starling Marte, which I'm very excited about. Mets need a leadoff hitter. And he's going to be batting leadoff. I mean, there's no doubt in mind. He's going to be the leadoff hitter on this team. You bat him leadoff, you bat Nimmo second. Then you have a very dynamic top of the lineup. And then you bat Lindor and then Alonso, and you push everybody down. Kanye, I've not seen much of him, if anything. So when the Mets get to spring training, whenever we get to spring training, it'll be my first experience in watching him as a player. So he's somebody that I haven't seen. From Anthony, Cano at second, as nuts as that sounds, unless he's the DH. If they bring in a third baseman, Brian Chapman or trade for Moustakas. Chapman can't. No, I don't want to talk about Matt Chapman. Matt Chapman cannot hit. And Moustakas, they're trying to get rid of Moustakas there in Milwaukee. He'd be playing second with here. The Mets don't need to bring in third baseman in per se. They need to bring in a guy that. See, the thing about Brian is you can bounce him around. And Escobar wants to play third. And Escobar signed the contract probably thinking he was going to be third baseman. Cano's going to be the DH. The primary, if he can still hit, he's going to be DH. He's not going to be playing second. That's for damn sure. Robinson Cano's not. He couldn't play the position in 2019. I can't imagine him playing it this year. He hasn't played. He's going to be DHing. DH and maybe playing third. That's about it. His range is shot. You know. The Met bench, I'm not worried about the bench right now because the bench sort of takes care of itself. That's for later on. Um, the Met pitching. Obviously, with DeGrom and Scherzer not knowing about their health and what they can get out of them long term, uh, they need to have a better rotation. Um, I don't rely on Carlos Carrasco. That part of that Mets Indians trade, or whatever the hell they want to call themselves these days, Guardians trade, uh, that part is a disaster. That is a bust. Okay. No matter what they get out of Carrasco now, that trade is a disaster. 100% unmitigated disaster. That's a bad trade now. Now that we've had time to look at it, that turned out to be a really bad trade for both teams, quite frankly. So we wash our hands of Carrasco. If the Mets get anything out of Carrasco, great. If they don't, they're still going to have to find pitching. Taijuan Walker. I think that he pitched well enough in the first half, but because he had not pitched, uh, and because he had not pitched a full season in a long time, I think that he will have a better season this year, a much more consistent one. Ding, 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 ding. From Southern Cal Mets fan, I am donating $1 from our buck. Hunt has the best Mets channel outside the Phantom Zone. I mentioned this guy. Maybe I should mention this. So this guy last night resubscribed to the channel because he wanted to come in here and complain about my titles on my videos. And he was knocking on the door. He was trying to get back out of the Phantom Zone. That never happened before. That's a new thing. That somebody wanted to come back out of the Phantom Zone to rant and rave at me. But he didn't realize that he don't have the lock and key. He don't have the lock and key. He doesn't have a key. I have a key to the door. He does not. So he was just knocking on the door. He couldn't do anything. So Taijuan Walker, I think, will have a better second year in terms of just the whole year. Because I think just being able to pitch a full season like he did, I think he kind of wore down in the second half. Obviously. So Tyler McGill. The Mets are going to be monitoring his pitching because obviously he has not pitched much in the minor leagues. And the Mets are going to have to figure out how to, work his innings. Buck's going to have to figure that one out. And David Peterson is like the same kind of situation. But he might need more seasoning. I don't know. I need to see him more. He might not be ready. He might be one of these pitchers that constantly goes up and down, maybe gets to the big leagues, and he stays there in the big leagues, But we'll see. But the Met starting rotation, they need a lefty in that rotation. We're going to hear a lot about these A's pitchers, Bassett, Montez, and Manaea. Now, Manaea is interesting because, like I said, he's left-handed. And the Mets could use another lefty. They need a lefty in that rotation, a veteran guy. But he does have a 1-year deal left on his contract, and he'll be a free agent. So that is something to keep in mind where he goes. Another guy to keep an eye on, and I'll mention him again, and that is if they were to put out Ronnie Mauricio. Now, I don't think you'd have to trade Mauricio for Manaea. For Luis Castillo, that might be a different story. The Mets might have to trade Mauricio for Castillo. Because Castillo, I think he has 2-3 years left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. So they might have to give him up in that kind of a trade. That's the only thing. But again, just to reiterate some things, there isn't really much to talk about because of the lockout. But I will have constant regular shows here for you on Saturday night and Saturday and Sunday afternoon. So you'll have stuff here. I'll always be here unless some weird thing happens or I can't get here on time because I'm always out on the island on the weekends. But couple of things. Saturday is Christmas. I will be spending time with my family on Saturday. However, out on Long Island. However, if I get home at a decent time to where I could do a show for an hour, I will come on live on Christmas night. As that sound? On the Baseball Hut too. And obviously, I'll be back next Sunday on this channel talking about whatever happens this week. Because there's going to be talk about Buck and little stories that are going to come out. But I'll definitely be back next Sunday in a live stream talking about the Mets and baseball in general. But Saturday is up for grabs. That I might not be able to believe. I don't believe that I'll be able to get here, but we'll see. If I could do a show for an hour, I'm going to try it. I'll try to get here next Saturday for Christmas Day. Now, New Year's Day, so I'm not big on New Year's and New Year's Day. There will be a show, I would think, on New Year's Day. Probably in the evening, I would think. And we'll be back again the following Sunday on the 2nd. From Ricky Cortez, I prefer Jose Ramirez over Kris Bryant. Well, here's the thing about Jose Ramirez. Back in the 80s and 90s, there's always a player. There's always somebody. We always talk, here's the weird thing. There are some players that look like sort of models and stuff, but then there's some baseball player and some guys that just look like regular schmoes and whatever. But then there are guys that come into baseball that are considered, like, in my view, the ugliest guy in baseball. Back in the 80s and 90s, Willie McGee he's the all-time ugliest player in the history of baseball. It's Willie McGee. Nobody's even close to Willie McGee. But Jose Ramirez, he getting awfully close to that. Jose Ramirez is probably the ugliest, and the Hut means ugliest player in baseball currently. And you mentioned Jose Ramirez. The Indians, or whatever the hell they want to call themselves, never traded anybody decent. You never hear about how the Indians got burned by trading somebody. If Jose Ramirez gets traded, that means they probably think that he's done. Okay. The Mets have already made a big trade with the Indians. They don't need to bring in another guy. The Mets have enough talent in their minor league system to put somebody there at third who could be good. And you're going to have to give Francisco Alvarez to bring in Ramirez. They're not going to want anybody else at that position at third base. Now, the Mets did not give up much for Lindor, but with Ramirez, and considering they made the trade with the Mets already, they're going to want a whole hell of a lot. Public relations-wise, they're going to want more for Ramirez the second time around with the Mets. I don't even think that, and he's got 2 years left on his contract. He doesn't have 1 year left on his contract. So the Mets would have to think long and hard. Do you trade one of your prospects for this guy? I don't know if I would do that. Just based off of history and based off the track record of the Guardians of Cleveland when they trade people. From Anthony, Zane Smith from the Pirates. Boy, you got that one right. Again, Ricky Cortez. Chapman is another good option. No, he is not. Matt Chapman cannot hit. He had 222 last year. He cannot hit. And I'm sick of watching the Mets not being able to hit. I'm at all. Defensively, he's a great defensive player. but he cannot hit. If it was Nolan Arenado, I'd have a different attitude. Arenado can hit, and he did rather well in St. Louis last year. Arenado was a guy I wanted the Mets to bring in, but he didn't want to come here, and I think that was a big consideration. He didn't want to come here, and they were going to trade him to a place that he wanted to go to. Yeah, Matt Chapman. And again, the 4 teams Mets have to be very careful who they deal with. The A's, the Angels, the Indians, Guardians, whatever the hell you want to call them, the Spiders, and the Mariners. Because whenever they make trades with those 4 teams in particular, the Mets get burned every time. That's why I'm a little nervous about the Mets making any kind of trade with the A's for their pitching. The A's never get burned. The Indians never get burned when it comes to any kind of trades. So, yeah, I mean, Chapman he's just not, he just doesn't hit enough. That's the thing about Matt Chapman. He just doesn't hit enough. He's got to hit for a higher average. He's got to get on base. He doesn't get on base enough. He's just not good enough in my view. I'm being totally honest with you. He just doesn't hit enough. From Ricky, I know Escobar could go to second because the Mets chase a great third baseman. Chase who? Who they chasing? Who they chasing? I mentioned it earlier, just a few minutes ago. The Mets have no hitting behind the plate. You cannot have another position on this field where you have no hitting behind anywhere. You can't have your third baseman not being able to hit. That is a power position. That is a position where the guy has to hit. That's not a defensive position. David Wright was not known for his defense. David Wright was known for his offense when he was at his height, when he was in his prime, before they opened Citi Field. He was not known for his defense. He was known for his offense. And Escobar wants to play third. The Mets need a second baseman. That's why a guy like Trevor Story fits better with the Mets than, say, Kris Bryant does. Now, I think the Mets will get Kris Bryant, but they can bounce, like I said, they can bounce him around. They can play him at second, too. And they can bounce Escobar, too. From the Mothman Evolved. There's rumor about Michael Ford talking to Miami. What do you think about this? That wouldn't surprise me. I think the Marlins will make one big play for a big player. I don't think that they really have an issue with bringing in another bat because they brought in Garcia. They think Garcia can play center field. I'm shocked to hear that. Buddy X Daniel says Jose Juan Uribe is greater than Willie McGee. I'm telling you, Willie McGee, the all-time ugliest baseball player in the history of Major League Baseball. And that goes throughout every league. This goes to Negro leagues everywhere. Negro leagues, Japanese league, any league you can find. Southern Cal Mets fan. Trade for Manny Machado, reunite with Buck. I tell you, some of these former players love Buck Showalter. They love him. Manny says that if it wasn't for Buck, he wouldn't have been the player that he is. Adam Jones, I was watching MLB Network. He was going crazy about him. Talking about how much he loved the guy. How much he's going to be great here. When former players come out and guys that have played for them come out and talk about how much they love playing for him, that should tell you a lot. And Manny Machado is a tough guy to deal with. He's a tough guy to deal with. And Adam Jones, in his career with Buck, he didn't run out some balls, and Buck read him the riot act, and he stopped doing that. So, but are you kidding me? He asked Bryant in left field. No, he's not in every. Here's the thing about Bryant. I think Bryant is the type of player that if you play him in one spot for any length of time, you'd see his defensive liability. I think at his best, he's a third baseman. At his best. But is he still a third baseman? I don't know. It might be a little bit difficult now to sign Bryant. I think the Mets will try to get him, but I think it'd be difficult because of the fact that they put on all these guys in the outfield. If they hadn't signed Kanye, I think that Bryant would have been a better fit. He might not be the best fit here now. Like I said, that's why I'm big on Trevor Story. But they'd have to give up a draft. They'd have to give up a draft pick. That's the only problem. They'd have to give up their 14th round pick um, for any kind of free agent like Trevor Story. They'd have to give up a pick. I don't know if the Mets are willing to do that. I don't know if the Mets are willing to do that. Doesn't seem like they are willing to do that. But the Morph Man Evolved says, I'm happy Stroman is gone. Me too. I didn't like his behavior before the Mets talked about Scherzer. I didn't like the fact that he put out who the Mets were going to talk to instead of him and sign him. It was very unprofessional. Um, you know, and then to say the kind of things that was said about certain reporters here, not very nice. He's not a nice guy. Um, so it's good they got rid of him. He's a little too much, a little too much in his own head, you know. And you can't seem to criticize him. Then he starts complaining that you're at fault for criticizing him. But in the meanwhile, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. If you want to participate in the chat, I'm going to end the live stream in a few minutes. But want to participate in the chat? Just be just subscribe and write to me. If you're watching on replay, if you leave messages, I will write back to you. We talk about a lot of different things here. You never know what people are gonna jump onto if I talk about something. But there's a very open channel, unlike other channels that focus in on one team or one subject. So I'll talk about anything here if you ask me. Let's see here. From Ricky, who's going to be the number 3 pitcher for the Mets? Well, he might not be here yet. Right now, the number 3 pitcher on the Mets is Taijuan Walker. And if you saw him pitch, you would think he was probably number 2 pitcher. But like I said, I think that the fact that he pitched the whole season, I thought that was very important. Even though he struggled badly in the second half, I think just the act of him getting the chance to start has made a big difference. And stretched his arm out. I think his second year will be much more consistent. It might not be nearly as good as he pitched in the first half, but I would think that the first half will be more in line to what he'll pitch next year in 2022. But I like Taijuan Walker. I like what he has. I like his demeanor on the mound. I really like him a lot. I know there was some people on this team that were very immature, but I thought that I really liked the way he carries himself. I never had an issue with him, especially I guess when the ball was when Louis wanted to take the ball from him in that one game. But again, I mentioned this again. The Mets do need a lefty. I know Carlos Rondon is out there. That's another name out there. But like I said, be careful with him because he did not pitch a full season last year. He missed about 6, 7, or 8 starts. So I think he was on the disabled list or injured list. So that's a guy to keep an eye on for the Mets. I know that they were talking to him. This Japanese pitcher you see, Kikuchi, I know they were talking to him too. People that have seen him pitch are not impressed with him. So I'll take that what it's worth. I've not seen him pitch. So that people saying that he's not nearly as good as they say that's going around, then I'll take that for what it's worth, and that means that to stay away from him. Now, I did do a video on him on the Baseball Hut too before the lockout. From Anthony, can you make a case for 2 starting pitchers, a front end guy and a back end dude? No confidence in the depth they have. No confidence in Walker in the second half as well as Carrasco. Well, Carrasco, I have no confidence in. Walker's a different story. I think that, like I said, Walker, I think once Walker he had the full season where he pitched, no injuries. He came out of it healthy. So I get, there was no complaints about his arm. So I think that's important. He had the Tommy John surgery, missed the last few years. So the fact that he was able to pitch a full season, right on. That's great. Uh, they need two starting pitchers. I agree with you. They do need two starters. They need a lefty, and they could probably use another, and obviously another right-hander. Uh, and like I said, there are a couple guys that are out there. I had to go through the list of pitchers, but let me see. Colin McHugh, that was mentioned. I mentioned him early in the live stream, but more of sort of a really back end guy, and really a guy they could put in the bullpen too. But a couple of guys, Luis Castillo, keep an eye on him. I think the Reds are going to break that team up. They traded their catcher to the Tigers, so I think that at some point um, we might see some more pieces getting moved there. Keep an eye also on Winkler too. Um, they do have a young team. They have young pieces with India there. But keep an eye on Castillo. Castillo could get moved. Sonny Gray could get moved. Now, if the Mets were to pick up Sonny Gray, they wouldn't have to give up much for him. He's not going to cost a lot. He's not going to. He's not going to cost a guy like um, Ronnie Mauricio. Castillo's a different story because he's younger. He's got a few more years on him. And Nelson Cruz says William McGee makes Juan Uribe look like Tom Selleck. Boy, oh boy. That is, boy, Juan Uribe is not getting any love. He's not getting any love, man. What did Juan Uribe do to you? He helped the Mets get to the World Series. Hello, Buzz Talk Live. See, you won't find this kind of talk. You won't find this kind of talk on any other channel. All the other channels do the same thing. Whoop, what's this? All the other channels do the same thing here. I do not do that here. I will talk about anything here. Juan Uribe. Yeah, I mean, none of these guys look like Tom Selleck. Buzz Talk Live. Who do you think Buck will pick for bench coach? I don't know. I don't know enough about Buck's coaching staffs to tell you. There is an article. There's talk that the Mets might be thinking about bringing in Carlos Beltran to be the bench coach. That they're more into looking for a guy that's younger. See, the one thing I don't do, Mothman, that's not very nice. I'll talk to the chat. Okay. Um, I mentioned him before, uh, and I haven't mentioned him in a while. That's Doug Tenapel, who's the creator of Earthworm Jim, and he was the showrunner on VeggieTales. I've talked to him. I consider him kind of like a YouTube friend. He had a big YouTube channel that got squashed by YouTube, but he had told me, he's like, the best thing you could do to sort of have a good relationship with the people in your chat is talk to them, say their names, read their names. They have questions, even if you don't read their question or the comment, just say their name. They love it. And you want to acknowledge the chat, and that's not good if that YouTuber you mentioned isn't doing that. That's not nice. That's not very nice. There's some YouTubers that are like that. I know Little Caesar and that Chalet, that Abyss, that Dog Hole in New Jersey only responds if you send them a super chat. That's rude. I won't talk to you unless you pay me. That's like being like a whore or a hoe. You know, that's like being a hoe. You don't want to be a hoe. You want to be a YouTube hoe. You know, that's not very nice. From Buddy X Daniel. Juan Uribe said hi to me one day when he was in the on deck circle, and this guy had his pants falling down with his with his shoes right there. He did have his pants down low. From Anthony. How'd I know you won't look for a closer now or a guy capable of replacing Diaz now? But you'd think when, not if, when Diaz starts pitching bad, you'd think the Mets go for a replacement come the deadline. Yeah, of course. They'll do that. You know. I mean, we're gonna learn a lot about some of these players that have been here for the last few years. Once Buck puts him through his system. Once Buck starts talking to these guys and starts getting these guys to do what he needs them to do, we're gonna find out who's gonna be here long term. Uh, that we're gonna learn a lot about these guys that have been here. They did mention over the last day. This has been a team that's had a lot of talent, and for some reason they just can't get out of their own way. That they've been spinning their wheels. Um, that's the one thing that we've learned about this team. This team did not hit in 2021. And if you watch the team, they look like they had no energy. Over the last really 3 seasons, they've looked like at times very uninspired, like they don't give a shit. We saw that in the first half of 2019. They got off to a horrendous start, and in the last 2 months they played inspired baseball. A lot of it has to do with sort of the lack of experience in the dugout. And obviously, if you watch in 2020, which was an unusual year, obviously with the pandemic and the lockout for a lot of businesses, you got the sense watching the Mets that they did not want to be there. Okay, that they didn't want to be there, and it showed. Um, you will not see that problem with Buck. He will get this team to play hard and to look like they have energy. That's why I was not a big fan of Louis Rojas being the manager of this team in 2021 because I felt I saw enough out of him or saw nothing out of him that made me very concerned about the long term um, success of this team. So now they brought in a guy that has some oomph to him. We're gonna get a really good chance to see what Pete Alonso's made of, what Francisco Lindor is made out of, what Dom Smith is made out of, what Jeff McNeil is made out of. If Buck doesn't think that they're any good, he's gonna say, I can't have this guy on my team. We can't have him here, and they're gonna listen, because Buck has all this experience. Um, from Buzz Talk Live, I heard Butterfield's name out there for bench coach. Okay, isn't he like in his early 50s? He's bounced around. He's been a bench coach for a long time. I've also heard him with the third base coach. Also, um, and we'll see with Diaz because Buck is very good with bullpens on balance. So we'll see where he is in terms of how he handles Edwin Diaz. Um, just to give you a couple names, a whole bunch of names really, of players that he's influenced: Bernie Williams, Mariano Rivera, Andy Pettit, Manny Machado was mentioned earlier. Adam Jones was mentioned earlier. Alfonso Soriano. Um, he managed Randy Johnson. His second year as manager, as manager, as manager. Stupid New York accent. As manager of the Diamondbacks, they won 100 games. He was able to manage some really great players. Um, from Buddy X Daniel, love Dom Smith, but his long swing was showing a lot of weakness last year. Don has a slow bat. It's not the swing. It's not the long swing. He has a slow bat. I am not a big fan of Dom Smith. Um, Richard says, "What do you think the Mets trading for Joakim Soria? Joakim Soria, didn't he retire? And if he didn't, hasn't retired, I think he's a free agent. Why would you want to trade for him?" Yeah, I am not a big fan of Dom Smith at all. At all. Uh, you're not going to hear me I said this before last year. You're not going to find me waxing poetic of Dom crying for some thug that got himself killed by the police. Okay. So there's no sympathy there for Dom Smith. And it's no surprise he had a bad year this past year. I'll mention this too. Again, the Guardians are going to have the worst year in the history of the franchise in Cleveland in 2022. They're going to be so bad just due to the fact that they changed their name. And it's no surprise that the Minnesota Twins had a bad year either. They were a playoff team that had just a dreadful season in 2021. If you look on their outfield wall, you'll understand why. But Pete Cintron, who's going to be the pitching coach? Well, as far as I know, it's going to be Jeremy Hefner. As far as I know, I think he's still with the Mets, so I'm going to assume that he's going to be the Mets pitching coach unless uh, uh, Buck wants somebody else. As far as I know, that Hefner's going to be the pitching coach, and he didn't deserve to get fired because he did a good job. I mean, he did a good job of that Met bullpen. Um, that I would mention. From the Mothman Evolved, the Cleveland Indians sounds better than the name Guardians. There's nothing inspiring about the Guardians. There's absolutely nothing. They named the team after two marble statues. Is that ridiculous? Two government marble statues. Ridiculous. You know. If anything, I would mention this, that the Indians were named after the first Native American who played baseball. He had a weird name. I'd have to look it up, but he had a very weird name. That's why they didn't name him after name the team after him. Prior to that, and this was 1914, they named themselves the Indians. Prior to that, they were called the Cleveland Naps. And the Cleveland Naps were named after uh, the great Nap Lajoie, who was a player for them and was a manager for them. And he was one of the great players of the early part of the 1900s. So they had a tradition of naming their team after real people. Prior to that, they were called the Spiders, which is a great name. They should have renamed themselves the Spiders. So the Spiders could have been their name, but they didn't. They could have went back to tradition. They didn't do that. They named themselves after a government statue. Very telling. But you could have had the fans. You could have had kids dressed up as Spider-Man. You could have had them dressed up as, the whole thing with the spider would have been terrific, but they didn't do that. They could have had really great logo, the Spiders. It sounds dramatic. The Guardians doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds kind of like a little too virtual signaling. Spiders, the Spiders. It's very dramatic. Spider-Man's a very dramatic name anyway. Very dramatic word. Christian Breed says the Guardians was sued by a roller derby team by that name. They came to a settlement. This is how stupid this is with Cleveland. They before they named themselves the Guardians, they call up the roller derby and talk to them. And they promised them, we're not going to call ourselves the Guardians. So what do? They name themselves the Guardians. So the roller derby team had to sue them because they had no choice. Because you can't at Cleveland, you can't have two teams with the same name. I guess they settled something. I guess maybe they'll probably share some kind of promotional thing with the roller derby team. But it was funny how this whole thing with the Guardians is so ridiculous. Should just left it the way it is. I'm not going to get into this sort of political thing, but if you notice, Cleveland Indians gone. The lady on the Land O'Lakes containers gone. Uncle Ben gone. Aunt Jemima gone. And what do you got left? The Gerber baby's still there. The Quaker Oats guy is still there, and they're all white. That's very telling. Richard says Cleveland should have named themselves the Barons. The Spiders would have been fine. If they name themselves after the spiders, that would be fine. It's a historical name. Like I said, it's got a little drama to it. It's dramatic. Spider is a dramatic. Oh my God, it's a spider. You could have had like a logo on with the spider coming down off a web. You could have had so much stuff with it. Um, I wouldn't go crazy about the hockey. Who cares about hockey? I don't even care about hockey anymore. And my team, the Rangers, they're like in first place. They're playing great. I haven't watched one game. I used to watch all the sports. I used to watch baseball, football. I still do. The football, uh, uh, basketball. I've been watching a little bit of basketball lately, um, and hockey. I used to watch hockey all the time, but it's really not. It's not really not worth it anymore. It's just too much. At the time, I had a choice: either go out with this girl and have to deal with her complaints 6 months out of the year, or have to deal with her complaining all year long. I couldn't do that, so I had to pick one. I had to pick one. I always pick the baseball, you know. So, but anyway, I think that's a great way to end the live stream. But again, I'll be back on next Sunday on this channel. I cannot promise that I'll be back on Christmas night, obviously, because I'm not because I don't want to do the show, but because I'll be on Long Island, and I want to be able to do the show for an hour in the baseball hotel. I love to do a show on Christmas night, but I might not be able to get back home to do the show. But I'll be back next Sunday doing this show, and I will be back on New Year's Day. I can guarantee you that I will be on New Year's Day or New Year's night. Well, we'll talk about the Mets and Major League Baseball, and hopefully we'll get um, some news about the coaching staff. Hopefully we'll get some news about what's going on with the players and the union and the ownership. But I'll be back here. I'll be back again next week at 4:30. I would think around. I came on quick, didn't I? Normally I drag myself to get here, but I got here at 4:30. I'm very happy that I was able to get here for you and talk a little bit longer than I had been. But we'll talk about the team and whatever else you want to talk about in the live. Come in here, you ask me questions. I'll answer any. Even if I had like even 3 or 4 times this amount of people in here, I would still answer your questions and still talk to you. Because really, you're the best part of the show is my interaction with you all, and it's not just about getting super chats and taking in your money. I'm not, if you have a question, I'll answer it, no matter what it is. So now, if you get snippy with me, then you get sent off to the Phantom Zone. But I've been able to sort of calm the chat down with this being able to sort of invite people in and be able to control the chat a little bit in terms of who comes in here. So you have to subscribe first before you can write to me, and that's a big deal. So be able to sort of bring in you all and really it's about talking about baseball. And I don't care about the titles of the videos. I'm going to keep doing the clickbait. I don't give a shit. I'm going to keep doing that. On Buzz Talk Live, thanks, Hut. You're sincere. I am anything but sincere. You wouldn't know it if you listened to my comic book videos, but I deal with very insincere people. Uh, and what's different about this channel and what I don't do on the other channels, I really go hard after the YouTubers. Here, I don't do that because really, uh, it's just a different mentality. I deal with real scum with the comic book people. With the comic book channels, I deal with real scum. A lot of them are fake. A lot of them don't care about the comics. With the baseball people, with the baseball YouTubers, uh, they love their teams for the most part. There might be one or two that don't. Might be one that doesn't. But I think really, and you know which ones. I don't have to tell you. But I think most of the ones that I've seen, probably almost all of them love their team. Whatever team they're rooting for. Um, I will say this: I'm not a big fan of that giraffe neck mark. If there was one YouTube I don't really care for, he's probably it. I still don't like what he said about Kurt Schilling. It really bothers me. That wasn't right. Hold on. Let me just check my phone. Yeah, you do have to have a very thick skin. I have a very thick skin from the other channel. Um, but the other channel I deal with, it is like the Wild West. This is not so bad because really, I just really got to be able to sort of handle the chat. It's a little bit different because with the comic book people, they come at you from every angle because really, uh, after talking about comics, they lose their minds. From some of the creators. I mean, I've dealt with some really bad creators in the industry, and so when I come on here and I do my video and do my live streams and stuff, I don't really deal with the YouTubes. Once in a while, YouTube will write to me, and most of the time they're pretty nice. But you know, like I said, they don't really interact that much with me. Once in a while, they'll write to me and stuff, but very, very rarely. It's not like the comic book side. The comic book side, everything they're all on edge, all of them, all of them, and I think it's funny because I make fun of a lot of them. Uh, Here's from Matthew. This is about giraffe neck Mark. It's the pencil neck Mark. Uh, pencil neck Mark. That's actually pretty funny. He said the most bizarre statement about Sean, like you said. He just said Schilling was a terrible person. He said he was a trash person, if I remember right. Let me see what I wrote down because I take notes here a lot of times. A garbage human being. Called him a garbage human. Um, but didn't provide a reason why. That's right. If Pencil Neck Mark had said, "Look, he's a garbage human being because I don't believe in the politics that he believes in. I think it's whatever he wants to say." Okay, he didn't do that. It was very petulant what he said about him. He didn't give you any kind of like. He just insulted him. He just wanted to insult the guy. Okay. And some of these YouTubes, all they do is list. That's all Mark. That's all that Pencil Neck does. He does a list. I saw it on my feed today. He did a list on the bet on all the second basemen in Major League Baseball. He got nothing to talk about. Okay, he didn't know what to talk about, so he just goes through a list. All right, who's playing second for the Mets? I don't know. I'll make up a name. Okay, Robinson Cano. He's the Mets second baseman. Who's the second baseman for the Houston Nationals? Oh, the smallest man in the world, Jose Altuve. That's what he does. That's all he does. He does lists. So if you're gonna do a list, how about be a little bit more than just a sort of on the surface YouTuber? Tell us why you feel the way you do about Kurt Schilling. Don't say he's a garbage human being and not provide information. And then he says, "Well, Kurt doesn't want to be voted in." Explain why. Explain why he has this problem with the media. He didn't do that. Anybody can do a list. I could do a list here. You know. Okay. I mean, I could do a list here and my channel would explode. I look at it this way, and I said this last night. I'm looking at the long term goal of what I want to do online. Okay. YouTube is not going to be around forever. YouTube is crushing any kind of dissenting voices on it. Okay. There's certain things I can't talk about on YouTube. There's certain things I got to be careful in this live stream talking about. Okay. These guys don't do that. These guys stay away from that. They encourage the opposite. Okay. I don't want to do that. I just want to do my little channel. I look at it this way: 5, 10 years from now, YouTube might be gone. Google might be gone. The rate that these tech media companies are going, they're going to destroy themselves with their censorship. Okay, it's just inevitable. You know, YouTube's not going to be around forever, so I don't care. 5, 10 years from now, I'm still going to be doing this stuff. I'm still going to be having a lot of fun talking about uh, baseball. So either here, and I'm on. I should have mentioned this. Now the live stream's almost over. I'm on Facebook too. If you want to follow me on Facebook, I'm doing these live streams on Facebook. But so I don't look at YouTube as sort of the be all end all. This is the beginning for me. I've only been doing this channel for a little over a year, and a little under a year with the Mets. So I'm just getting warmed up. But I've been doing videos on the Mets for like 3 years on the other channel, on the Comic Cut. I've been doing videos on there for years. But it didn't move because the weird thing about YouTube is you got to be able to do one subject on a channel, and that's it. This channel is doing well. I'm happy with it. There's certain things I am sort of hampered by because I don't want to be on camera. I'm sitting here in my I've been doing this live stream and here at the hut and just sort of here relaxing, you know, and talking to you off the top of my head. Uh, from Buddy X Daniel, you're my favorite Met channel, Hut. Your opinion is your own, not just what the media headlines say. Exactly. you know, and I have a lot of fun with the clickbait videos, and a lot of you have fun with it. A very small group of people get really pissed off by it, but I would mention that I bring a lot of views to those videos. I make money through those videos. Most of the money that I make are through these videos. So I would mention that. Uh, like I said, I'm a very different channel. You won't see. Who the hell cares about doing a list? These guys, they all want to do lists. Like all of a sudden, they become Santa Claus. They got, oh, I got to do a list on who's going to play second, who plays second for each of these teams. I got to do a list on who plays first for all these teams. At the moment, you know, let me do a list on this. Let me do a list on that. It's like, got nothing else to talk about. And I would mention, uh, it's not easy doing these live streams. Pencil Neck does not do a live stream on YouTube, and when he does, he's usually a guest. And I've seen some of these videos. He does not bring in a lot of views. He really doesn't, because here's the key about doing a live stream with other YouTubers. A small YouTuber has to go on a big channel to get um, any kind of like benefit out of it. So say I were to have the pencil neck here, that does not help me. That doesn't help my channel. Unless I want to talk to the pencil neck, Mark, that does not help my channel. If I were to go on his channel, where if he were to do a live stream on there, that would help me. That would help my channel. Now, if I wanted to have a guest on here just to talk, like I've had Pete McCarthy here, Pete doesn't have like and I've encouraged him. I told him the best. You should do stuff on YouTube. You'll get a lot of subscribers very quickly. I guess he didn't want to do that. But I want him on here. If I want to have him on here, I'm going to talk to him. So, because I want to talk to him, which we've had here. I should have him on again at some point. But he's got a weird schedule. I haven't talked to him in a while. From Matthew Landau, Pencil Neck is also clueless about the Mets and the game of baseball in general. It doesn't surprise me. Most of these big YouTubers, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They really don't. And this goes across the board. They read stuff online through Google, and they automatically think they're an expert. They automatically think they're an expert. And because of that, when you have to ask them stuff, they don't do live streams. Mark does not do live streams on YouTube. Okay. Because I guarantee you, if he were to do a live stream on his channel and somebody would come into his chat, send him a super chat and ask him, well, what do you think about Kurt Schilling? Why do you feel the way? He wouldn't know how to answer it. Everything's scripted. Everything is not off the top of their head. If you listen to my videos, I may ramble a lot of times, but it's off the top of my head. You get the genuine article here. There's no like playing around. That's why I have no patience for nonsense. There's no fooling around here. Because I know I ramble. I don't need somebody trying to distract me, even if it's to do a recorded video. It's no playing around, no games here. But anyway, I've gone on longer than I wanted to. I rambled a little too long. I rambled 45 minutes longer than I wanted to. Dinner's waiting for me. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say. We'll be back next. Oh, really? The Mothman Evolved says they dump some of us when they hear we root for the Hut. Bunch of club. Really? That's not good. Really? That's not very nice. You should go in there and say it again. Say what you like. If you're going to spend time to watch video. Now I have a very quick trigger finger when it comes to blocking people. But if you're going to take time to write to me and you take time to sit through a live stream, uh, you deserve to be treated with respect. Okay. Um, Now I do mention, I do talk about the YouTubers, but I don't really go after anybody here really on the baseball side. But that's not nice that they. Uh, uh, well, I will say about that particular YouTuber. In about 4 years, 5 years from now, he won't be doing that channel. He'll be doing something else. Probably something in the media. He won't be doing that much longer. You know, he. I can guarantee you that one. Anyway, um, well, I called it pretty much early on about him anyway. What did I say about him? That his favorite play was Daniel Murphy. I was right. I was right on the money about him. That was his favorite. That was his favorite Met. You know, some of these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. You know, I noticed that he doesn't have Francisco Lindor's jersey behind him anymore. He got a Mike Piazza jersey now behind him. What would be the next thing? The next fad for next season? It'd probably be a big statue, probably a replica statue of Tom Seaver. Probably that's probably what will happen. You know, this particular YouTuber, he probably did not see Daniel Murphy prior to 2015. And if anybody saw Daniel Murphy prior to 2015, every Met fan wanted to get rid of him for 4 or 5 years because of the fact that he couldn't field anything and he couldn't run the bases. And he did not have any power. And that's a fact about Daniel Murphy, by the way. Yes, I noticed that. Didn't he do like a 10-hour live stream or 7-hour live stream? What the hell can you talk about for 7 hours? I think he did that 7-hour live stream, right? That's crazy. I did a 3-hour live stream like a couple weeks ago when the Mets were trying to get Scherzer. That's different. But he did. He went for like 7 hours. What the hell can you talk about? What the hell can you talk about? I should say it. I also noticed he changed the picture on his channel to where he's got the same size, same shaped head as Mr. Met. That's a little strange. My bird. Let me tell you something about my birds. Buzz Talk Live. They're a pain in the ass. I've been buying purchase from them wooden ones. They keep chewing them up. I don't know what the hell the deal is. Jersey Grit, 20-year-old kid whose fandom goes back to 2015, preaching to us much older fans. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like I said, most of these guys. I mean, I could tell you what guys do know what they're talking about. I mean, the ball cap guy, he knows what he's talking about. I know he's friends with him. He's a good YouTuber. Um, I know Hum Baby Baseball. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. But it's just like with the comics. I don't really watch anybody else. I mean, I don't really watch anybody, to be honest with you. I'm not like I gotta know what this one thinks. I gotta know what that one. They all think the same for the most part. Uh, they were all for. I'm going to say it again. They all wanted Trevor Bauer here. That's for damn sure. They all wanted him here. Let's see. I missed some of the chat. Let me see what's going on here. Matthew Landau for the Barrel live stream. He did a 7-hour show. That's crazy. But Trevor Bauer's not worth it. As it turned out, the guy turned out to be a rapist. Allegedly. Anyway, I can end this live stream. This went on longer than it should have. But yeah, that's not good that some YouTubers are rude. That's not nice. That's not good. But yeah, so like I said, this show is gonna expand. It's not always gonna be on YouTube. YouTube's not gonna be around forever. But I'm gonna keep doing this show. A year from now, we're gonna be doing this. 2 years from now, 3 years, however long I could do this on YouTube, I'm gonna keep doing it. Especially this particular channel. Because this channel, I absolutely positively love doing it. The comic books can be, like I said, can be a big pain in the ass dealing with these lunatics in the comic book industry. But I'm going to end this. I keep saying I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it. Thank you, buddy. I'm getting the hell out of here. Thank you for coming by. Again, if you want to write to me in the live stream, if you're watching the recorded version, just leave a comment. And again, we'll be back on Sunday. Keep your eye out for videos. I'm sure I'll come up with something interesting to talk about. And I want to thank you all for coming by. Please have a good Christmas. Have a good holiday. I'm going to try to get back here on Saturday. If not, I'll be back here on Sunday talking about the Mets and everything else. And thank you. Have a good night. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you later.